everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from April 10th and 11th, 2020, and I'm recording this on October 9th, 2020. As always, the dates are just about so you guys know when this information is actually most relevant because, of course, these things change. As always, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector hottest trending comics of the week. They changed their name recently, so we're going with that now. This was actually the second week of the shutdown of where they were not releasing new comics, although there is one new comic that actually kind of made it through that was on this list. So this is a very strange list. This was when there were no new comics coming out. Plus, this was before the market kind of midsummer started exploding and people started really investing in comics. So at the time, they basically, both lists talk about how there wasn't much to put on the list. So it's a very odd list, not something you would typically see on these hot comic lists, but let's get into it. There are a few books that are fairly typical, and otherwise there's just a lot of great books in here. So first up, we have Sweet Tooth #1, and this was basically because news came out that Netflix had gotten the rights from Hulu, I think, for making a show out of this, and that it was already in production, and that Robert Downey Jr. was attached, and this book jumped up to a $30 book. 9.8 was going for $175, and now it's sold $30 to $40 for a raw copy of this. 9.8, so have jumped up significantly. They're now going for $3 to $350. So this book has gone up. It appears this is still on track to actually be released and be a show. So yeah, this book is still doing really well. Next, we have XO Man of War #1. And this hit the list because John Cena posted a photo of XO Man of War on his social media and didn't say anything. And people speculated that he was going to there was going to be a movie and he was going to be it, and people ran rampant, and this book jumped up to a $40 book. 9.8s were going for $220, and there was a huge increase in sales. Yeah, this book is now down to like a $20 to $30 book. 9.8s have a really wide range on them right now. You can get them for $100, sometimes they go for $200, and basically everything in between. So there's a big range on the 9.8s, but this book is down, but still going for solid values. So next, we have an odd one. This is Superior Carnage Annual #1. And this hit the list because Funko announced or showed a picture of that they were making a Carla Unger Funko Pop. And if you have no idea who Carla Unger is, she only appeared in this single issue. I think she was like a nurse or something. Anyway, she got taken over by Carnage, the symbiote. So she became kind of a she-Carnage or a female Carnage. And she got the symbiote, and she was introduced, got the symbiote, and died all in this issue. It's the only time she's ever appeared, but Funko decided they were making a pop out of her, so people started buying this. It jumped up from basically a $1 bin book to a $5 book, really, but there was like a huge increase in sales. And this book has actually went up. It's now it's basically a $10 book now. Interestingly enough, everybody is marketing it and listing it on eBay as the first appearance of She-Carnage. And people are paying $10 for it, but she doesn't actually matter. She's not been brought back in any way, shape, or form during the Stunning Kate's run. But people have been paying $10 for this. I would not, but that's where we're at on this particular book. Next, we're moving into covers, and we have our only book of the week. There was actually a new book, and that is The Boys, Dear Becky #1, the Carla Cohen variant that was limited to 300 copies. Back then, this book was immediately going for $100. And now it's still going for $100 to $150 raw. 9.8s are going for $250 to $300. So yeah, this book is up. This is a very popular cover. Still several sales on eBay, so we're still moving. Despite only being 300 out there, there's still several of them listed and several of them for sales, or several of them have sold. Next, we have our other cover of the week, and this is X-Men 205, the J. Scott Campbell variant. This is, of course, the first appearance of Hope Summers. This was a book they basically put on the list because there had been no sales for like a pretty extended period of time, and then suddenly it kind of jumped back into people's mind. And a couple of 9.8s went for $300. Book has been pretty steady since then. There's been a pretty steady amount of sales. It hasn't really disappeared from the market. Raw copies go for $100. 9.8s are still going for right at $300. So a first appearance, a popular variant. So yeah. With that, we're going to move into this broad category this week I called Comic Buzz. And there wasn't really anything specific driving these other than these were just some of the books that were actually selling. Not like what you would see later during this whole COVID thing, where some of these books have exploded, but like these were the most popular books, and in some cases it was just a couple of sales that put them on here, but or on one of the two lists. So let's dig into them because there's several of them. First up, we have Venom #3, first null. Back then, raw copies jumped up, and we're going for $50 to $60. 9.8s, we're going for $100 plus. Yeah, we all know what's happened with that. The hype for the King in Black event that's coming this winter has driven this book way higher. Now, raw copies are $150 to $200, 9.8s are $300. This book is up. Null and Symbiote's period are super hot right now. We'll see how this King in Black storyline plays out and if this book is ultimately worth what people have been paying for, but this book is definitely hot. Even though it's actually down a little bit from where it peaked. So my guess is it'll probably jump again as that series starts to come out. So next we have an all-time classic. We have Tales of Suspense #39, first appearance of Iron Man. And this hit the list because there were a couple of sales above market, including a restored 4.0, which went for $3K plus, which was big numbers for a restored copy. And I think, honestly, CBSI was just looking for books about the list this week, I'll be real. Right now, this book has actually been fairly steady during this period. It hasn't really jumped a lot. A regular 4.0 now is going for around a little over $6,000, which is kind of where it's been. 1.5 recently sold for $4,000. So book is definitely still hot, still moving, but this is definitely a big boy book. And yeah, I think they were just looking for anything to put on the list. Next, we have Crime Suspense Stories #22, sorry. And this is just a classic PCH cover. And this hit the list because there were two auction sales for a 3.0 and a 3.5 that both went for $1,800 plus, which was a high, I think, for a 3.0. Maybe, I don't even know if it was. There were two sales where it went for good value. Now, the most recent 3.0 went in August for $1,825. A 4.5 went for $2,800 in August. This book has also been pretty steady during this period. From what you can tell, not a lot of data on this book, but enough that you can see that it's been pretty steady. Values slowly continue to just kind of creep up. So, next we have Werewolf by Night #32, first appearance of Moon Knight. And this is just another book that had a couple of sales that caused them to put it on the list. More than 20 copies sold during that week, so that was a big week. Mid-grades were going for $500 to $800. 9.2 went for $2K. Sorry, I wrote $2K instead of $2,000, and I wasn't sure what I wrote. So that was why it hit the list. Raw copies now are still going in that 600 plus range. A 6.0 you can get a 6.0 for between $700 and $900. So maybe up a little bit on a mid-grade. 9.2, $2,700. So overall, this is probably up a little bit. This is another book that keeps kind of just creeping up in anticipation of that Moon Knight show that's coming. So yeah. Next we have Edge of Spider-Verse #2, the first Spider-Gwen, the reintroduction of Gwen Stacy as Spider-Woman. Yeah, another really good book. Like I said, this was kind of an odd week. This one hit it because the 9.8 hit it went over $600 for the first time. Now raw copies are $300. 9.6s are going for $600. 9.8s are $800 to $1,000. This is another one of those books that's really jumped up over the summer, and yeah, it just keeps climbing. Popularity with this character, speculation on more Spider-Verse movies, plus so has kept this book moving. So next we're going to drop to maybe a little bit of a controversial key. I don't know. This is X-Men Annual number 14. The first appearance of Gambit, or the first cameo of Gambit, the first full Gambit. I'm not sure on this one. He does appear quite a bit in the book. It did come out before 266, where he's on the cover, but it was intended to come out after, so it's kind of this weird thing. But anyway, this book was picking up steam as people were kind of recognizing it as actually this first appearance. Back then, it was Raws were going for $20, 9.8s were over $100. Raws are still going in the $20 to $30 range, but 9.8s have crept up to about $200 for this book now. Personally, I would probably rather have the other one just because of the cover. But it's maybe a little bit of a 180, 181. He does appear in multiple panels. He does speak. They do say his name. It's probably his first appearance, even though it was intended to be his second appearance. That's just the way it ended up coming out and hitting the market. Next, we're going to move out of by generic comic buzz and just books that they put on the list because they were somewhat selling, to a little Marvel new movie spec, and this is Incredible Hulk number 271, the first Rocket Raccoon. And this book basically spiked because James Gunn made some statements about how Rocket was going to be a focus of the Guardians series going forward. It had kind of been on Star-Lord, and he was going to kind of shift it a little bit toward Rocket in the upcoming movie. Back then, raw copies were going for $125, 9.8s were going for just over $600. And this book is, raw copies are down a little bit. 80 to 100 is kind of more of the range, but 9.8 has continued to go up. It's up to around $800 now. A really good book, a really good character. So nothing you can really complain about here, like most of this list this week. Like I said, they admitted that they were looking for stuff to put on the list, and they mainly just put keys on the list that had some good sales or maybe hit new highs. Next, we have Thor, God of Thunder, number 2, the first appearance of Gore, the God Butcher. And this hit the list because the director of the upcoming Love and Thunder, I cannot think of his name at the moment, basically put out a thing saying that he was going to have space sharks and Thor, Love and Thunder, and space sharks played a pretty prominent role in this Mighty Thor got this whole Gore storyline with Thor. So as a result, people started specking on Gore that, well, if he's bringing space sharks, he's going to bring Gore. And even though space sharks had appeared before that run. But anyway, that was the speculation. Back then, the book hit $50. 9.8s were going for $225. And that's basically where the book is right now. $2 to $250 for 9.8, $50 plus for raw copies. So, yeah, there's still a lot of speculation on Gore, that he's coming to the MCU, that maybe that's who Christian Bale's playing. I think Gore's a great villain, so I would love to see it, but we will see. Next, we have maybe our biggest book of the week. Like, most of these have been, like I said, really solid books. And we have X-Men Adventures number 1, which is the first comic book appearance of the characters as they were from the 90s cartoon. And this hit the list because Disney Plus released X-Men avatars that you could use for your Disney Plus account. And people started speculating that the 90s cartoon was coming back to Disney Plus, either as a re-release or maybe they'd make new ones, or it was, I don't know. That was just a spec they were talking about on Tom's show. But anyway, it caused this book to jump to a $5 to $10 book from Dollar Bins. There was a 500% increase in sales. A 9.8 went for $65. And yeah, the show ended up coming to Disney Plus. You can watch the X-Men cartoons on there. But now this is a $1 to $5 book. Interestingly enough, 9.8 are actually going for $100 to $150 right now, but there's only been 4 sales going all the way back to May, so it's not like there's a bunch of 9.8s out there. But if you can get the book for $1, you can buy a lot of copies to try to find that 9.8 before you would spend the $100. So with that, we got what? We got 2, 3, 4 more. Well, 2 more books and 2 categories. We'll talk about those in a second. Next, we have DC 52 Week 12, and this is the first. This is where Adriana Tomaz becomes Isis, and this was completely about the Black Adam movie, that Isis would be a character that would appear. So that's where people were jumping on this, or rumors that Isis was going to be the love interest for The Rock's Black Adam movie. And so back then this book was a $5 to $15 book. Now it's like a $3 to $10 book. So it's down a little bit, but it was never super high. We kind of got a non-trailer during DC fandom for Black Adam. Hopefully we'll get it soon, get the movie soon. Maybe we'll get a real trailer before long. But so yeah, people are still specking on that movie a little bit, but the hype around this particular Isis book has kind of fallen off. I think there's another like true first appearance of Isis that people have redirected toward. But anyway, last non-category this week was Shazam number 28, the second appearance of Black Adam. If you don't know, Black Adam first appeared in the 40s. He didn't appear again until the Bronze Age, which is this book. So this was just his second appearance. And back then, this book was going 175 raw, 9.8 went for 1860. This has continued to kind of climb a little bit. Raw copies are still going in that $100 to $200 range. But a 9.8 recently went for $2,400. So, but that's also the only 9.8 sale since June. So maybe it's climbing a little bit. My guess is it'll climb some more once we get a real Black Adam trailer. So those are all the books that I'm really going to have like actual information and sales information on. The other 2 things that CBSI put on their list this week were Golden Age Batman were popular. Really. So that was, which, yeah, I just have the example that they used on the thing for Golden Age here beside me. But yeah, Golden Age Batman are popular books. They do go for good values. It's not really much else I can do. Like, I didn't really want to dig into, like, try to compare sales, because they didn't give any sales data. They just basically said they were popular. And I think we can all agree that that is definitely a book that's worth collecting. And then finally, it was, back then, Jim Lee was doing a series of charity sketches, which he ultimately got other artists involved in to raise money to help local comic shops during the shutdown. And basically, yeah, like one of his, though he was auctioning them off and they were going for $10K plus for his these sketches that he was doing. So they put those Jim Lee sketches and just those charity sketches on the list, which was just a fabulous thing that Jim Lee did. Hopefully it helps some comic shops stay afloat. But yeah, so that's this week's list. A very different list than we typically get. This was very much a early COVID list, only 2 weeks into no new comic books, and they were kind of scrounging for any excuse to put a book on the list. Some fantastic books, though. So with that, I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.